Okay. Good afternoon and welcome to the Belleville Committee of Adjustment for the May 20th. My name is Brian Miller and I'll be chairing the meeting today. Our first order of business, is there any pecuniary interest by anybody today in any of the items? I'll take that as a no. Our first application today is A1421 for minor variance at 241 Front Street, and the applicant is 1234604 Ontario Inc. The agent is Henry Chow. Chai, is he with us today?
Just having a Henry, yes he is. 1 second, he's being promoted to a panelist. And he's in the meeting.
Good afternoon, Henry. He's muted, I think.
Did you see that there's a message in the chat
Yes.
regards to that property?
Yes, he had asked when he'd get to speak. Mr. Chu, if you can hover your mouse, you'll see the opportunity to unmute. I've also clicked and asked for an unmute.
He's still muted, I think.
Mr. Chair, it looks like Andrew has something he'd like to say.
Yeah, Andrew, go ahead.
As he's signing on, may I have an opportunity to introduce the application?
Yes, go ahead.
So if we could bring up the PowerPoint. The property at 241 Front Street is zoned general commercial C3 zone. It was previously a bank. The applicants will be proposing to convert the ground floor into either a retail or restaurant, and converting the upper story into 7 dwelling units, as indicated on those floor plans. The minor variance requests relief from the off-street parking requirements for the residential units. I believe Bruce Firestone is here to, he may have some comments after the applicant has discussed, and they have, the floor will open up for public comments. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, is Henry with us? Oop.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, do you have any comments, questions?
No, I looked at the staff report and it meet the 4 tests under the Planning Act, including the official plan, the zoning bylaw, and the site plan is and also desirable in the area, and which also supported by the provincial policy statement. And so we are quite happy that staff recommended this minor variance for parking for approval, and I concurred with the staff report.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for this gentleman? I had a question that I think was answered, but there were parking spaces with this when it was the bank, but I understand that they're not adequate or meet the bylaw. Is that correct, Andrew?
That's correct.
Okay, any other questions for this gentleman? Was there anybody else that wishes to speak on this from the public? Mark?
Don't believe so. Just 1, 2 seconds. Nope, none.
Okay.
I believe we have Bruce Firestone and Nick at Liberty Group also raised their hand.
Okay, are they with us?
Yes, I can promote them into the meeting. 1 second.
Okay. That's Nick and Bruce, okay. So Bruce? Oh.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yeah.
Yeah, and while we're waiting for the other participants to be brought in, this is another case of parking downtown and how you do it when the land you're buying doesn't necessarily accommodate the parking that you might need. So Councillor Sanderson and I think, are going to try and provide a bit of an update on the previous initiative we had discussed regarding downtown parking. That's all I wanted to say. Again, it's another one of those cases. It falls into that same bucket. Thanks.
Thank you. Bruce, do you have any comments?
Yes, if I may, Mr. Chair, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak. My wife and I bought a building not too far away from this subject property at 249253 Front Street. It's known as the China Gate Building, not far from where Liberty Entertainment is. And we also are participating in the renovation and refurbishment of 232 Front Street, which is known as the Maze Mall. And I'd like to speak in support, if I may, Mr. Chair, of 241 Front Street, the minor variance application. And so I don't repeat myself as well, in support of 260, 266 Front Street, if that's acceptable to you, Mr. Chair.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I've come to really love Belleville to the point where I also bought a house in Belleville, which actually closes next week. And, I'm planning to certainly spend my summers there in the future. One of the things that attracted me to the downtown core of Belleville was its historic buildings. And the China Gate Building, as I'm sure everybody on this call knows, and the Maze Mall as well, but particularly the China Gate, was in need of significant change and renovation and repair, which we're undergoing now. And I've spoken at quite length with Andrew Chan and his staff there. We do have at that particular location 7 legal parking spaces, which should be adequate for us. But what we are really trying to establish is something I consider a live, work, play, socialize, make downtown core in Belleville. I think that's what Mary Jo at the Belleville Downtown BIA is thinking. I think that's maybe what the council and the mayor are thinking. And certainly I think the new official plan, when it's adopted, also anticipates that. And so what I was going to suggest to the committee is that there are a number of things that the committee should, in my opinion anyway, take into account in terms of parking and relief from parking. And that is that to really make a truly walkable community means that we have to perhaps follow some of the examples we see in Europe where they're not exactly banning cars, but cars are guests and people are given priority. And I think that's the direction for downtown Belleville. So I wanted to speak in support. I do think there are some other alternatives that the committee could look at. Certainly car sharing is one of them, relief from parking, cash in lieu, those sorts of things I'm sure you've all considered and given some thought to. But overall, I think the idea is to accommodate young people and not so young people who want to, like I said, live, work, and play, shop, socialize, make in one place without needing a car. And as a former professor as well, I asked one of my daughters, I have 5 children, and I won't be much longer, Mr. Chair, but I have 5 children. I asked my youngest daughter, Jessica, to do a survey. It's very informal. It's not statistically significant in any way, but she's in her 20s, and she did a survey of 32 of her friends after I asked her to, and only 2 of them had cars. And only 4 out of 32, which really surprised me, had driver's licenses. So I think the younger generation is heading towards kind of a new place. And certainly in some of the buildings I own in Ottawa, which is where I'm currently resident, what used to be jammed, packed parking garages are now half empty. So older people and younger people are taking public transit or Uber and Lyft. And Mr. Chair, I think if I am right, I think Uber and Lyft are now operational in Belleville. Is that correct?
I'm not exactly sure. I think Uber is, but I'm not exactly sure if both of them are.
Yeah, I did see in December of 2020 that council allowed both of them to operate, whether they're both operational there. But I have many clients and many former students of mine, they don't own a car. If they need to go somewhere, they go by public transit or they go by Uber or Lyft. And if they need a car, occasionally they'll rent from a company like Enterprise. So I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I wanted to speak in support of these 2 applications.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Nick, oh, Glenn,
Hi, and thank you for having me here, Mr. Chair. I really appreciate you considering this application. I am the proprietor of the building which we bought. We at Liberty Entertainment Group are really pleased to come out to Belleville and to look at creating a footprint out there. When we initially bought the property, we knew there were multiple uses that we could envision for this property. It's iconic. It's a beautiful building, and our intent was to maintain the heritage of the building, number one, and number two, come up with the most appropriate use, which would really support the initiatives of what the city has done in terms of the gentrification of downtown Belleville. Our belief is that as a city is trying to bring life to its core, one of the most important things is to allow people to live in the core. And so people live within the community, they shop within the community. Having additional apartments and people living on this street, on this corner, just helps support the businesses in the community in that area and brings life to the local area and to Belleville in itself. So having the ability to add these 7 residences will really, I think, support the gentrification of that downtown core, will support the business community, and will support the Belleville community in a whole in terms of creating an incredible environment. So I'm pleased the staff has supported our application. We believe it's the appropriate use, and we've created some very unique style apartments. Which I think will be very sought after in a very iconic building. And, having these apartments within the building help the long-term longevity and keeping the building self-sufficient and sustaining and in good repair, and stay as part of that community in a corner lot and be a part of the regrowth of the downtown core. So we really appreciate the support, and I look forward to building something iconic in downtown Belleville.
thank you. Does anyone have any questions for the gentleman? Glenn?
And not really a question, Mr. Chair, but I think now is appropriate, especially with 260 and 266 coming up as well. That previously we had put forward a suggestion and city staff regarding renting or allowing people who own buildings downtown to rent parking spaces owned by the city of Belleville. I had a very long conversation with Christine Stewart at the city of Belleville last week. And really the end result of that conversation was that parking in and of itself is a much more complex issue when it comes to the downtown area. And we're not just talking about, Front Street, we're talking about Coleman, we're talking about Dundas, we're talking about the new development that's proposed for the harbor area. We're talking about, Coleman Street over by the courthouse and what's going to happen up Coleman Street, the new renovations that are taking place, the Red Lion, et cetera. So Ms. Stewart sent an email to Councillor Sanderson, and again, it's to reiterate, the city spent tens of millions of dollars upgrading the infrastructure downtown to attract the very kinds of people that we see before us today at the committee in terms of improving older buildings, repurposing, getting people to live downtown, et cetera, et cetera. And while there may be some thought to parking in the new master plan, really the conclusion that Christine and I came to during our conversation was there needs to be a transportation / parking plan in general, so that we make sure that there is transit to support people living downtown, or that bike routes are potentially put inside there, or because we know this is just the beginning of a tremendous development push that's going to take place in downtown. I can't for the life of me believe that the parking lots that are currently facing the river are going to be parking lots forever. So again, this was an update. I think I was going to ask Councillor Sanderson to kind of make it the end here, but it's more appropriate to make it now, especially with 260 to 266 coming up. It's hard to force someone who's trying to make these kinds of improvements and improve Belleville, to adhere to parking bylaws that are a little outdated when they don't have the actual physical land to do that on. We thought that maybe giving them the opportunity to lease spots in city-owned lots was part of a solution. But it turns out the problem is more complex than that. And to support what Mr. Firestone was saying, it really is, you want to create a livable city. You want to create that livable, breathable city. So I'm going to shut up now and defer this over to my good friend, Councillor Sanderson, if he would be willing to say a few words, just because I think the recommendation has been that this needs to kind of go to council or to planning to look at how we look more holistically at the overall problem and how we make it easier for developers to improve the downtown, which is a benefit to all the citizens of Belleville. And I, for one, will be supporting this application. Thank you.
Bill, do you have a comment?
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. So certainly, council's excited about these developments that have been brought forward by Henry and Bruce and Nick. And, we're certainly excited about seeing more of that in the downtown and everything that's offered. I think just as a bit of background, we've had previously, we've had plans around the downtown commons, and we've had some discussions about the waterfront. All of that is starting to come to fruition, and one of the items that this group has discussed is the need to complement the intensification in the downtown core with some parking. And so, as Glenn mentioned, it's more complicated than just assigning or blocking off 6 spots behind Jim's Pizza. It really needs to be a holistic approach. And Christine had sent out a note to Glenn and I on Monday, I think it was, and she's looking perhaps to have a consultant. This is her suggestion. Look at the entire waterfront downtown core and create the policy that will allow us to accommodate the needs that we know are there now and that we know are going to be there in the future. So whether we actually require a consultant to do the work or not, I'm not 100% sure, but it will be back before council. And I think, I can't talk for council, but I think there'll be unanimous support for heading in this direction. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments? The gentleman, okay, having none, then we have a motion. Sue moved that, seconded by Robert. All in favor? Carrie, thank you, Bruce. Nick, Henry? Okay. Our next application is A1521 for a minor variance at 260-266 Front Street, and the application is 192-2449 Ontario Limited. Jordan Vincer is the owner or the agent. And Andrew, can you just give us an update on that?
Sure thing. Yep, thank you, Mark. So 260 to 260 Front Street is zoned general commercial C23. The ground floor was an office, and so was the second floor. And the proposed use is to convert the portion of the second floor to 3 residential units. The minor variance requests relief for the parking spaces for 3 residential units, since the property doesn't have on-site parking. I believe Bruce Firestone also was interested in commenting. I advise him to raise his hand if you would like to add anything else. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Now, I don't know if Bruce is here.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, it appears that Bruce is left.
Bruce is left.
Yeah, I think, excuse me, if I can, I think Bruce was talking to both applications at the same time.
Yes, he was. That's correct. Yes. Was there anybody from the general public that's to comment on this, Mark?
I had Bruce and William Rohrbeck. I don't see Mr. Rohrbeck in the list of attendees.
Okay, thank you. Now this basically is
listed as Jordan
what we
Vincer.
were talking about a minute ago. That it's a building with no parking, and that they're looking for relief for to provide no parking for these units. Any questions, concerns, comments? Having none, motion by Glenn, seconded by Carol. All in favor? Carried, thank you. So our next application is minor variance at 15 Lewis Street. The applicant is Stephanie Wilson Vincer, and the agent again is Jordan Vincer, and the application is A1621. And Andrew?
I'll take it away. So the application for 15 Lewis Street is a minor variance. The current zoning of the property is R4 or residential fourth density. There currently exists a garage that has that's basically on the property line, and the owner wishes to rebuild the garage with a greater setback of 2 feet. Staff did receive a call from the neighbor. She was concerned over the changes. It was clarified with her that the setback is actually increasing from 0 to 2 feet. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. So was anyone, Mr. Vincer?
He's being promoted to a panelist right now. Mr. Vincer has joined.
Good afternoon, Jordan.
Oh,
Can you hear us?
I can hear you, but I don't think I have video.
Okay, that's fine. Do you have any comments, questions for the board members?
Nope.
No? Does anyone have any questions for this gentleman? So basically, you're just rebuilding the garage, but the setback is on the line, and now it's going to be farther away from the line. So that's actually an improvement, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's no one else from the public that wishes to comment?
Nope.
Okay. Thank you, Jordan. Do we have any questions, comments? Chris, you?
Yeah, I'd like to make a quick comment, and it might come up in a subsequent application today. This should be handled, I would think, at building permit application, but spatial separation of the garage. I don't know how old the existing garage was, but the construction of the new garage with that proximity to the property line and the adjacent owner, they may have to consider what's called spatial separation under the building code. If that garage was to catch fire, and we've seen a few fires in the city lately in residential neighborhoods, and they seem to be spreading to adjacent houses. And so I just didn't know if Jordan had any comments with respect to the construction of the new garage.
Yeah, so it was originally only 4 feet from the house, but now with talking to the Andrew and Greg before, we increased it to 10 feet away.
Okay. And Andrew?
To follow up on that question there, I'm not an expert on the Ontario Building Code, but I believe that fire separation is between dwellings specifically.
Okay. Robert, did you have a question?
Sorry. Yes, more of a comment. In relation to what Chris was saying, I think there's a request from someone in the city to make sure that there's at least a 45-minute fire resistance rating for the wall that is being built up. And I think that's part of what Chris was talking about with spatial separation requirements.
On the garage.
Yeah, on the garage. So I guess they're talking about the burn resistance time that will be in construction. And I think we need clarification that it'll be built according to that.
Okay. So that'll be part of in the building permit process, I would think. I don't know if Greg can answer that.
Yeah, that's correct through the chair. That is considered through the building permit review application process.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Having none, motion by Bill, seconded by Robert. All in favor? Thank you. Okay. Next application, A 1721, minor variance at 30 Riverside Crescent, Foxborough, Ontario. The applicant is Randy Boudre. And Andrew, you can take it away again.
Perfect. So the application for minor variance is for 30 Riverside Crescent. The current zoning is rural residential, and it's currently developed with a dwelling. The applicants are proposing a detached garage in the front yard with a setback of approximately 176 feet. The application is requesting permission to propose a front yard accessory building, which is not normally permitted under the zoning bylaw. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Is Mr. Boudre or Alicia, is she here to make comment?
I don't see an Alicia on the list of attendees.
Just by we're seeing if she's there. This house is located on a dead end street, cul-de-sac, whatever you want to call it. It's the last house on your left going up that river, that street. So it's wooded behind, and it's not really an issue as far as I'm concerned. Is Alicia joining us?
I don't see anyone named Alicia as an attendee.
Okay. Any questions, comments, concerns? Then we will have a motion by Chris, seconded by Sue. All in favor? Carried, thank you. So our next application now is 1821, minor variance at 296 University Avenue, and the applicant is Barry Fahey. And Andrew, you can explain again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the property at 296 or University Avenue is zoned at restricted industrial M12. It's actually currently vacant, I believe, and they're proposing a new building with different setbacks. I will defer to their, the applicants will be providing a presentation, so I won't get into detail about the specific relief, but it's in essence, it'll be closer to the lot lines and reducing the parking requirement.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, length of a parking space. My bad.
Okay, so the members of the public or the owners are they joining us? Sarah or Marco or Pete?
They are joining as they raise their hand. They are being promoted.
Okay. Okay, there's Sarah. Welcome.
Hi, good afternoon. Yeah, my name's Sarah, and I'm a planner with Macintosh Perry. And through you, Mr. Chair, I will defer to my colleague Marco to deliver the formal presentation.
Welcome, Marco.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairperson Miller, committee members, staff, and members of the public. As Sarah just mentioned, my name is Marco Cekic, and I'm a planner with Macintosh Perry, and we're here on behalf of our client, BBS Construction Limited, and the owner of the subject lands, Miller Carmichael Properties, Inc. The subject lands are located at 296 University Avenue and are owned by Miller Carmichael Properties, Inc. And the area of the property is approximately 4,721 square meters with roughly 63 meters of frontage on University Avenue. The property is it's currently vacant and it was previously occupied by a small truck terminal building. And the surrounding land uses include vacant lands and Highway 401 to the north. There's a decommissioned railway to the east and some industrial uses to the south and west. The minor variance application requests relief from the zoning bylaw to reduce the interior and rear yard setbacks from 7.5 to 3 meters. And then it's to reduce the required length of the parking space from 6 meters to 5.6 meters. And just to note there, it's only 24 of the actual spaces that are going to be reduced to 5.6. The remaining would be the 6 meter depth, but just to keep things consistent, the request is for the spaces, for all the spaces. The purpose of the request for relief is to facilitate the development of an approximately 1,565.2 square meter warehouse building with associated office space, as well as required parking. It's important to note also that we're going through the site plan control process concurrently with this minor variance. So a total of 43 parking spaces are proposed on site. The total number of parking spaces required without really information for tenants B and C is 27 spaces. And this calculation was completed based on Part C, Section 14, Paragraph A, etc. of the zoning bylaw. So basically, it's 27 spaces are provided for on the site plan, which shows as tenant A, and the remaining spaces will be shared between tenants B and C. And I do note those spaces are smaller as well. So the actual warehouse and office space is smaller than tenant A. So the planning brief submitted with the application, the staff report prepared by city staff addressed the 4 tests pursuant to subsection 45(1) of the Planning Act. And both reports conclude that the variances requested are in keeping with the general intent of the official plan, where the warehouse and accessory office use shown in the site plan are permitted under industrial land use policies. The proposed development is also in keeping with the character of the area, which is largely warehousing uses. And therefore, the proposal is in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan. So it's also in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. So the proposed warehouse use is permitted in the zoning bylaw. And as noted in staff's report, the site plan contains suitable setbacks and parking space depths. It's our opinion that the proposal meets the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. And just important to note that there's other municipalities that have a mix of urban, suburban, rural areas, and they require shorter parking space length. So just one example is the city of Ottawa, where they actually require a length of 5.2 meters. The proposal is minor in nature. The reduced interior and rear yard setbacks will ensure that the site is functional for loading and parking requirements. And the proposed parking space length of 5.6 meters should be sufficient to accommodate the typical vehicle length. If you've seen the site plan, you can note that we show the truck turning on site. So the setbacks had to be reduced along with some of the parking space steps to accommodate the occasional truck that would come in and load or unload supplies. The proposed reduced side yard and rear yard setbacks are not anticipated to have unreasonable or unacceptable adverse impacts on the adjacent properties. Finally, the proposal is desirable for the appropriate development and use of the land, building, or structure. The proposed minor variance accommodates the truck turning and facilitates construction of the proposed building on site and is therefore desirable for the development and use of lands. So finally, the report prepared by city staff recommends approval. No concerns or objections were received from external agencies or internal departments. And the only comment to note was from the chief building official, who mentioned that the proposed setback may change the building's required spatial separation requirements under the OBC, similar as was mentioned under the previous application. And this is acknowledged, and it'll be addressed through the site plan control process and building permit process. This concludes my presentation, and we'd be available to answer any questions as necessary. Thank you.
Chris?
Yeah, just a question. Unfortunately, we weren't provided with the site plan in advance of today's meeting. At least it wasn't in my package. I wonder if Andrew could put it up on the screen. We've seen this parking space length reduction numerous times over the years. I don't think that is a big deal. I think 6 meters was established when cars were bigger, quite honestly. But maybe now that we can see the site plan, I think it was the truck turning that I just kind of wanted to have a better idea of, and how the trucks would access the loading docks. But otherwise, nice to see a vacant site in our industrial park being utilized again. Thank you.
Okay, I have a question, Marco. Is this warehouse and office space? It's not retail?
Correct, Mr. Chair. It is warehousing with an accessory office space. No retail.
Okay, thank you. Robert?
Yes, through the chair, sorry. I just wanted to bring up a point. I mean, you talked about average parking length, and Chris, you also mentioned that cars have gotten a lot smaller, but there's a high proportionate number of people in the region that drive pickup trucks, myself included, and it's a pet peeve when you're trying to park and you cannot fit into a space because of that. And I'm wondering if you have the ability to designate some to be slightly larger to accommodate trucks, as I assume the parking will be for employees, right?
Correct. Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, the parking will be largely for employees. And I mentioned that only 24 of the actual 43 proposed spaces are 5.6 meters in length. The remainder are 6 meters in length. So there are plenty of spaces for even larger vehicles. So.
Okay, great. I'm fine with that.
Okay, I guess it's Pete. Do you have a question, comment? Is he with us?
Sorry, no, I don't. I'm just here to watch unless there's a specific question.
Okay. Is there anybody else from the public that wish to comment, Mark?
I've admitted everybody I could see associated with this application.
So Barry or Curtis isn't, are they another? All right. Any other questions, comments, Glenn?
No, Mr. Chair, I was just going to move for approval.
Okay, moved by Glenn, seconded by Carol. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah, Mark, Peter. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next application is A 1921, an application for a minor variance at 365 Maitland Drive. And the applicant is Nick Walsh of Walsh Properties. And do we have someone here to speak to this? Andrew, you can explain it first, sorry.
Sure, no problem. So the application is for 365 Maitland Drive. The current zoning is M131 zone, which is a general industrial zone with special provisions. The property is currently developed with a building for warehousing, repair, and retail. And the proposal is to have a new building in addition to it, as specified in that site plan there. The application requests relief for the interior and rear yard setbacks and the number of off-street parking spaces required. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So is Hillary with us, Mark?
We have Hillary and Nick both joining.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you're aware, but Nick Walsh is also joining.
Okay. There we go, Nick. There you are. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Do you have any questions, comments to make?
I'll probably pass over to Hillary for the more technical side, but for us, yeah, we bought this building a couple years ago, and with the idea of expanding in the future for future business needs, we met with the city council and to discuss the ideas. And the idea here is just a couple minor variances to allow us to extend the building so it's sufficient for our business activities.
Thank you. Hillary, you can proceed now.
Yeah, so as Nick mentioned, what they're looking to do is expand their facilities to accommodate their business growth that they've had over the years since purchasing the building. And primarily the expansion is for warehouse space to accommodate the inventory that they have for distribution. There's a combination of retail, but also a growing demand in the e-commerce side. So it functions more as storage and warehousing for them, which is why the reduction in parking was requested. The number of spaces based on that footprint of building per the Thurlow zoning bylaw far exceeded what would be required for the operation of that facility. And then the reduction in the setbacks is again to accommodate the size of expansion that's required for their growth.
So there's not going to be any more employees than there are now?
No, there may be a few additional employees, but still, I think currently, Nick, you could speak to how many you have on staff currently, but it wouldn't exceed the number that's being proposed, in addition to some spaces for the public.
Yes, right now we have 2 employees. So I would expect we would hire another couple employees, which would still be well below the number of parking spots that will be available.
Okay. Sue, do you have a question, comment? Go ahead. You're on mute. Sue's on mute. There we go.
Oh, sorry. I thought Mark was going to do it for me. Just out of curiosity, what is the product being e-commerce out of the facility?
Hockey sticks mainly. We're expanding into hockey equipment, but started out with refurbished hockey sticks and brand new hockey sticks.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions, concerns? Nobody else on the public wishes to comment?
No, none that I have in the gallery. No.
Thank you. So we have no further questions, comments, concerns. Do we have a mover? Sue, and second by Chris, and all in favor?
It would be un-Canadian to not do so.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Hillary.
Thanks.
Our next application is A 2021 for minor variance at 52 Queen Street, and the applicant is Ryan Peters. And Andrew, I'll let you go from here.
So this minor variance is for 52 Queen Street. The current zoning of the property is R4 zone. The property is currently developed with a single detached dwelling and a garage located north of the existing dwelling. The proposal is to replace the garage with an attached addition with a second story on it. The application requests relief for the west yard along Ann Street and the north yard, which is under the zoning bylaw considered a rear yard. For some more context, this property has 2 frontages, so some frontage on Queen Street and some frontage on Ann Street. Since the frontage on Queen Street is technically shorter, the south yard is deemed the front, while the north yard is technically deemed the rear. So the purpose of this application is to request relief for the attached addition in recognition that in a different circumstance, it could have been an interior side yard. We did receive correspondence from the neighbor to the north in opposition regarding shadow impact, which you have been circulated. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Is there any member of the public wishing to comment on Queen Street, Mark?
Mr. Hutchinson.
Mr. Hutchison, is he with us?
Joining now.
Good
Good afternoon, everyone. So I made an original submission with the application, and I put something out last night, this morning, in response to the letter. What I would suggest is this property has been sold. The current owner is moving on. A new family is moving in with 2 young children. The footprint of the existing house is not big enough for a 21st century family with 2-car garage, mud room, and all the other things. So the purchasers desire to put an addition on this building. So then you look at the building, the property, and try and figure out what's appropriate. Currently, there are no driveways onto Queen Street for this house or the house to the east. So along the whole block, east of Ann Street on the north side, there's no driveways. So to put an addition on the east side, with car garage would require, bringing a new driveway and changing the whole dynamic of Queen Street facade. Same thing, it's pretty difficult to put an addition in front of a house. So then you're left with the west side yard on Ann Street or the rear yard. West side, you'd probably get into having to take down trees and such. So logistically, and given the existing footprint of the house and the internal layout, for that property, the best location for this addition is shown on your application. But as Andrew referred to, there's a technicality. Because it's a corner lot, the zoning bylaw has to legally define what is the front and what is the rear. And they do that by the shortest frontage is front and the longest one is side. So there's a difference of 2 feet. And that makes Queen Street the front and makes the back, the north side, rear. Therefore, that's why we're here before the committee. But when you look at the variance request diagram, if there was a house to the south of this property and not a street, if it was an interior lot, we wouldn't be seeking variances. The setbacks from the north property line for an interior side yard are the standards of the city. For 1-story, 1.2 meter setback. For 2-story, 1.8 meter setback. And we're proposing slightly over 1.2 for the 1-story and 2.6 for, 1.2 for the 1 and 2.6 for the 2-story part. So unlike all the other applications you've heard tonight that have asked for changes in the standards, we're not asking for relief from the standards. We're still maintaining what the R4 zone requires as a setback if this was a side yard. And if it was the side yard to the house to the north, the house to the north, the house to the north. So we're not moving the garage any closer than the minimum required. So that's the technicality of what is frontage. The other thing is I did send out last night and hopefully circulated today, street view pictures of the 4 houses on the east side of Ann Street. This house, the house next door who've lodged their complaint, and then the next 2 houses. And if you look at all those 4 houses and the side yards, they're all comparable in the sense that from the next house to the 3rd house, there are 2-story buildings with basically a minimal side yard and then the driveway to the next house. And the next one doesn't have a driveway because it's on the north side, but it has the same rough spatial separation between the 2-story part of the house and the house to the next. And actually, if you look at that street view picture, it's kind of dark in between those 2 houses because that's the nature of the beast in the east end of Belleville in the old part of the city, that houses are this far apart. So I would suggest that the standards that we are asking for are the standards of Ann Street and meet the zoning bylaw. I've responded, in terms of the neighbors' comments about privacy. There's only 2 windows on the north side of the house, and they're situated that no one's going to be staring across into the house next door. And a house this high meets the standard if it was an interior side yard, if this wasn't a corner lot. So that is what the city's bylaw since 1977 has accepted as being the setback on interior lot. So I would suggest if you look at all the tests of the Planning Act, is it minor, is it appropriate, it meets the zoning, meets the official plan, I think they are all checked off, and I believe staff report also say the same thing. So I'll leave it at that, and I acknowledge the comments from the abutting property owner. Thank you.
Any questions for Spencer? Glenn?
Yeah, Spencer, through the chair, just to confirm, you're not changing any setbacks. The setbacks will remain as they were before, and the setbacks are the issue that we are here to determine from a minor variance perspective, correct?
Yeah, I mean, there is an existing one-story garage that already has, and I think I put a blue line on the variance sketch. Andrew or Greg can confirm, but no, I don't believe we're changing any regulation to the normal setbacks if it was an interior side yard.
And again, my point through the chair is the setbacks are not changing. The height of the addition may be changing, but that is not something that is up for discussion at the Committee of Adjustment, because that's not within the purview of what needs to be applied for as an exception. I just wanted to be clear on what the scope of what we are trying to decide is, which is that there is an existing garage that has an existing setback right now that's going to be torn down, and the addition is going to follow the exact same, not exactly the same footprint, but the same setbacks as the existing garage today. And I just wanted to confirm that.
Okay. Any other questions for Spencer? And is no one else from the public to comment on Queen Street, Mark?
I don't have anyone. There's a Catherine Tran that is as an attendee, but I'm not sure to speak to what matter.
She's on another application.
Okay, I just want to make a comment about the drawings that I see there, that the proposed addition there looks much better than that existing garage that's there. And once it's down in that new addition, it's going to be a nice looking building as far as I'm concerned. Only an improvement. Robert?
I have just a question that's maybe a little unrelated, but right beside that garage is a driveway that looks like it spans both property lines. What is that?
Well, there is a driveway on the adjacent property to the north, which is on the south side of that house.
Yeah.
So there is a property line just to the left of the existing garage. I would say a meter to the left. And then from that over to the house, this two-story house, is the neighbor's property and their driveway.
Okay, but this isn't going to impact, like, it's not taking away from their ability to use that driveway, or?
No, the proposed addition is a 1.2 meters onto the subject property. So 1.2 meters from the common property line.
Okay. Okay. Andrew, do you have a comment?
Yeah, if Mark could bring up the slide again, just to get a visual here. I was just thinking about it, and we can, this is just a suggestion, but on the top left there's the image that Spencer was referring to about the blue outline. So the blue outline is where the original garage is, that's shown in the picture. And then the remaining gray area is the addition. So in reviewing the drawings, the setback that's referred to as 2.64 meters is where the two-story addition is. To potentially alleviate the concerns from the neighbor, I would suggest that perhaps we should actually change the variance to include more specific wording about a second story. But that's just a suggestion. I don't know if Spencer has any thoughts about that.
I'm not quite sure what you're alluding to, Andrew. I did have a conversation about 45 minutes ago with the architect, seeing about, changing any roof lines. It was a bit short notice, so I asked him if he could look and see how it affects the second story. And also, I'll be quite honest, as people can appreciate, with lumber prices and other prices, you can say it was wrong, but the owner has placed the order for his materials at his risk. So any change in any of the roof lines or trusses would be a material change in what he's ordered. So it's kind of a little late to, and again, all I can say is the setback for 2 stories is 1.6 meters, and this is setback 2.64 meters. So we're still further back than the standard as shown in the diagram. We will, I can guarantee you, as I say, we made an inquiry. I made an inquiry to the architect and I made an inquiry to the owner. And we are investigating maybe putting a hip roof on that 2-story part and slide it back or have a diagonal. But at this hour, I do not have enough information to say we could do it because as you can appreciate, what does that do for the living space in the second floor and the cost?
Any other questions from Andrew?
Through the chair to Mr. Hutchison, I was just referring to your response to the comments regarding the second story requiring 1.8 meters. My suggestion is because as recommended, it doesn't address the second story.
Oh, sorry,
So
Andrew.
my suggestion is that the second story has to be at least 1.8 meters or as drawn, or 1.8 meters or 1.2 or 1.88, which is 0.6 more than the north yard setback at its least to uphold that.
I would put it, I have no objection putting into your decision that be set at 2.6. That's what we've asked for. That's what we've shown. Hold us to it.
Okay. Any other questions, concerns, comments? If not, a motion by Glenn, seconded by Carol, all in favor? Thank you.
With the provision that was just brought up.
Correct.
Yes, that's correct, yes.
We will consult with staff, and if we can make the roof hip and bring it back so it's further back, we will endeavor to do that, but subject to the architect and the cost.
Through the chair to Spencer, I think to the point is just holding you to that 2.6 meters. I think that's the provision that we were talking about because that's the last one that Andrew had discussed. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
All righty. Thank you, Spencer.
Bye now.
Okay. Okay, our next application, E1021 for consent at 62 Benjamin Street. And again, Andrew, you can tell us what's happening.
Yep, I'll take it away. So the property at 62 Benjamin Street had a consent application applied for. The zoning is R4 and the existing use is 2 dwelling units that are attached. Under the zoning bylaw, the definition of a semi requires that those 2 dwellings be located on different lots. So the actual severance here is actually being bringing this building into compliance. Other than that, no real changes in the proposed use. Is just to legalize the separation of the 2 dwellings onto different properties. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
And is the Daniel with us, Mark?
Mr. Clemente is joining right now. Sorry, Mr. D. Clemente.
As soon as he joins
Yes,
it.
I am right here.
Oh, Daniel?
Oh,
Yeah, so what we're doing basically is just splitting this house in half, so to speak, and making so they can be sold in 2 separate as 2 separate properties.
yes, that is the proposal, yes.
Yeah, any other questions, comments? No, anybody else have questions for Daniel? Okay, nobody else from the public?
Nope,
Mark?
there are none. Nope, none.
Nope, okay, good. So having no other comments, and Sue, are you moving? It'd be, and seconded by Robert, all in favor? Carried. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
So that concludes our applications. We do have some general business to deal with. And the first one is B 721, and this involves 241 Thrasher Road, which we deferred at our last meeting. And it was to do with looking at some comments from the Mohawks of the Bay of Quinte and someone else. So I do see that we had some comments there from Quinte Conservation and the Mohawks of the Bay of Quinte, and they had no concerns. But I do believe that City Hall or the staff were okay with it being rezoned. Is that correct, Andrew?
Yeah, if Mark could bring up the slide. So we discussed internally about what the zone category would be. I forget specific if we were specific about it. Right now, it's the conditions are still not specific to which zone, but the applicants have since applied for rezoning. The zone category will be rural residential for the portion south of the hazard zone shown on the severed parcel. I will add that there was in the conditions that was written in the recommendation, there was a condition B is overly inclusive to say that the severed and retained parcel to be independently serviced. There is no existing development on the retained parcel, so that condition should be amended to say only the severed parcel has to be independently serviced by well and septic.
Okay.
Thank you.
So does everyone understand what happened there? Do you have any questions, comments, concerns? No? Okay, a motion then by Robert, seconded by Chris. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, our next one is to do with 220 Farnham Road, and we approved it, I think, with road widening. Was that correct, Andrew?
I believe so.
And they're satisfied now that we amend that to not include the road widening in our decision?
Through the
Greg, do
chair.
you want to?
Yeah, sure. Through the chair to members of the committee, yeah, it's something where after notice of decision was sent out, the property owners got in touch with us and said, we see there's a road widening petition, but they're moving Farnham Road east when they realign it. So do we have to give the road widening? And so we got in touch with engineering, and they confirmed that the proposed alignment will actually move Farnham Road further away from the subject property, so that they confirmed that they don't require a road widening. So for the purpose of clarity, we're bringing it back to see about having the committee remove that condition from the decision.
So we're amending our decision to remove the road widening on the retained and the severed.
Correct.
Okay. Any questions, comments, concerns? No? Okay, mover, Bill and Robert, all in favor? Thank you. Now, Bill and Glenn kind of touched on this earlier about this parking thing. Did you have any other comments, questions, concerns at this point? Yeah, go ahead, Glenn.
Mr. Chair, yeah, no, the only thing I want to make sure that we document here is really where this is going forward. And so I'll defer to my colleague, Mr. Councillor Sanderson here, in terms of where we move or how we maybe move forward. I think at the end of the day, what we're really trying to say to Belleville City Council is, hey guys, you need a plan for parking and transportation downtown. So, you know, you know, I'll then open up the floor to any other comments, and hopefully Councillor Sanderson has some comments as to how this will get brought back to City Council, because again, it's, you know, I'm not going to speak on behalf of everybody here, but I think that we need to have that plan in place, need to understand what the new official plan is going to do in terms of parking and transit and requirements downtown, so that we can move forward, and so that the improvement of the downtown core to support the money that was already invested can do so in a with less red tape, less bureaucratic red tape. That's all I'm going to say there. Thanks very much.
Yeah, so Christine did get back to us, and when we put the 2020 capital budget together last fall, there wasn't anything built in for a parking study. So there's nothing, and so parking falls under the city clerk's group. So there's nothing in their budget to undertake a consultant study in terms of what would be required and how a policy would be updated. So basically, I will be working with Matt McDonald, the city clerk, and Director of Finance, Carol Hines, to come up with the best approach. I can see worst case that we put it into the budget in the fall of this year to undertake the study. I don't know whether that's good news or bad news, because it is going to take a bit of time to develop that policy, and I think we've got time. But certainly I welcome any comments from any of the committee members, based on our earlier discussions, if they think there's a higher sense of urgency to this.
I think that we've got the ball rolling now, and it's just going to take some time to get this into place. And I do agree with Glenn that it's something that should be looked at and put in place for the future. Robert?
I think the higher sense of urgency can really only be identified by people that require the parking. So maybe a survey sent out to the property owners and or tenants, or both, in the area of what the need is, to see how high priority it is.
Yeah, no, it's a good suggestion. I'll certainly bring that forward.
Sue?
So we're talking about a study, a consultant, just to help put together a policy. What kind of price tag are you thinking?
That's the that was my very first thought, Sue. Christine didn't put together a number for us. She just said
we don't even.
So I don't know if it's 5,000 or 50,000.
Yeah.
Okay. And certainly that would be a factor that would need to be considered as well.
At least at this stage, though, it's in the radar, and they're looking at all the possibilities, I would think.
One of the things, when I talk to Matt, one of the things I'll be looking for him to do is like, let's not reinvent the wheel. If we've got communities our size around Ontario, or his contacts through AMO, we might be able to, cut and paste something rather than hire a consultant. So anyway, so like you said, Brian, it is in the works, and it'll take a little bit of time. That's all. And if the committee wants, I could certainly, report periodically back to the committee in terms of the progress and the direction that's being taken.
Yeah, I can comment.
I'd be happy to do that.
If I can just comment from experience, Bill, it's probably the latter, not 5,000, but tens of thousands. But and yeah, that was my comment. Parking studies have been done in the city in the past as well. There's been lots of talk, about a parking garage on Pinnacle Street there, adjacent to the Playhouse. But we can surely draw on other municipalities. I think there has to be some urgency, though. If you just look at the number of applications we've seen in the not too distant past, 7 more units here, 3 more units there. Yeah, I think that's the message, that the parking has to be addressed. But I think we've got the ball rolling in the right direction. We can't hold all these people to parking requirements when the land piece, as Glenn has said earlier, just doesn't exist for them. Right. So anyhow, it's great for the downtown. It really is.
Good. Glenn? You're muted again.
Yeah, thanks. And let me perhaps reframe this. I don't want anyone to think that I'm suggesting that we suggest to council that they spend a bunch of money on consulting work that doesn't need to be done. I think we maybe need to reframe the goal as not necessarily parking, but to the point I think that Mr. Firestone made earlier in the committee meeting tonight, it is, and again, Councillor Sanderson, I think this is why you're the ideal person to kind of bring this forward. This is a transportation issue. It's not a parking issue. It is, we have people who are going to live in a dense urban area. And so maybe there need to be more cycling options. Maybe we need to look at transit and how transit can provide, relief. Belleville's not a huge city. This isn't, there aren't millions of people here, so it's not the same in terms of the kinds of transit you can get. But I think all options need to be on the table. And to the point that I think a couple of the other members have made here, that it's spending money for the sake of getting another consulting report that's going to get ignored is a waste. So I think we need to look at instead, if downtown is going to become a more livable area, then how do we make it so that not only is there parking for those who want it, but what other alternative transportation options are there for them so that they don't have to drive in a city the size of Belleville? So I just wanted to be clear about that. I'm certainly not, I'm the last person who's going to want to suggest that we spend a bunch of money on a consultant's report that's not going to get us anywhere. But I think that it needs to be reframed as, how are we going to accommodate the growth in living and activities that are going to take place? I mean, you put a big restaurant in that Royal Bank building, you're going to have a lot more people wanting to go downtown again. How do we as a city deal with that so that it's not a whole bunch of angry people who can't find places to park, but we can accommodate it with transit or with cycling or with other things like that? So I just wanted to be clear about that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I think everybody agrees there's many pieces to this puzzle.
Well, I appreciate those. I appreciate those comments, but the one thing I do want to be a little cautious. I mean, we've got a BDIA, we've got an Economic Destination and Development Committee, we've got a Transportation Committee, we've got a Transit Operations Committee, and so I think my own opinion, I think it's the narrower we keep the scope of this thing, I think the greater chance of success. Now, that doesn't mean to say that this wouldn't spill over into those other committees, even if it's just for information. But I want to make sure that it doesn't creep. It gets to the point where we sort of lose control of it a little bit.
And through the chair to Councillor Sanderson, yeah, I agree with you. I'm not suggesting that. I think what I'm saying more is parking is a piece, transportation is a piece. These are all different pieces. I certainly don't want to see, and it's probably beyond the scope of this committee, other than to say we keep getting inundated with things at this committee to provide, all of these adjustments for parking. Fix it so we don't have to do that. That reduces the red tape. And part of that may not necessarily be parking, but may be tied to whatever those other committees might do. So I'm certainly not trying to give us more work.
Yeah, so Bill, maybe you could just update us from time to time. And in the meantime, if any of the committee members have any comments, send them off to, well, Bill and CC all of us so that we have a copy of that. But I think that, as mentioned before, the ball's rolling and hopefully it'll get stopped somewhere. So keep on rolling. Okay, if we don't have anything else on that, I guess we better approve the confirmation of the minutes of our April 15th meeting. Sue moved it, second by Robert. All in favor of the minutes? Thank you, carried. Okay, the only other thing I have is I see a comment from Greg, I think, was that Carol Feeney, the new appointed counselor, is our alternate for our committee. So at some point in time, we will get to meet her and maybe be part of our committee. So other than that, our next meeting is June 17th. And I have nothing else. Does anyone else have any other comment? Robert?
I just heard that outdoor activities have opened up in the province as of Saturday, including marinas. So yay.
Sue's going golfing on Saturday.
Well, if I can get a tea time, holy smokes, man.
Okay. If
I just want, listen, I just want to mention, I'm going to spend the entire day Saturday. I'll be up at 7 a.m. smoking ribs. So if you smell something good in East Hill, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you might want to pop by.
Okay.
Those of you know
Down
where I
the street,
live.
I'll be right
All
there.
the smoke. And we'll see what you can get.
Alrighty, someone adjournment.
Yeah.
Carol, thank you. Robert. Okay, everybody have a good weekend. We'll see you next month.
You
Bye-bye.
too.